In today's presentation, we're going to go through consumer protection. Consumer protection is how the consumer is protected against false or misleading claims or other things that can happen to them when they are shopping and buying or using goods and services. Firstly, we need to look at what is consumer protection. So, consumer protection stops manufacturers and retailers from taking advantage of the consumer. If the consumer is not aware of their rights and responsibilities, they can easily be taken advantage by retailers or manufacturers during sales or other types of retail events. It also protects the rights of the consumer. I'd recommend you look over the rights of consumers, as this is a very popular question for the Junior Cert. It also ensures that if a consumer has a genuine fault with a product or service, they get some form of redress. Redress is the 3 Rs, so either a refund on the product or service, a repair of the good or the service, or a replacement. You are absolutely entitled to these as part of your consumer rights. During the presentation, I may refer to the following key terms. The first is the consumer. The consumer is anyone who buys goods or uses services. We are all consumers because we buy things and we use services every day of our lives. The manufacturer then is who makes the product, whether that's in factory, in industries, wherever it is, but where is the product made and who is making it? That is the manufacturer. Lastly, then we have the retailer. This is the shop or place where the service can be got or the item can be purchased. So retailers are when you go into a shop or you go into a place and you get a service, that is what a retailer is. I've included some examples of retailers there, but there's loads more that you can talk about. So anywhere you go to buy stuff is a retailer. When you buy anything in a shop or you pay for a service, you automatically enter into a legal contract between you, the buyer or the consumer, and the seller of the product. The contract is not between you and the manufacturer of the goods, and that's very, very important. Also, the proof you have of this contract is the receipt. So that's why it's very important to keep your receipt as proof of contract between you and the retailer. Act we need to look at then is the Sale of Goods and Supply Services Act, and this is a really good one to be able to refer to in your answers. So basically it covers four main things: the sale of goods, so actual physical goods, and the supply of services, so it covers all aspects of being a consumer. So first off, goods must be of merchantable quality, so they must be of good quality for the price paid. Now if you only pay a few euro for something, you can't expect amazing quality. Whereas if you paid a lot of money for something, you are entitled to expect a certain level of quality. And that's important for you to be able to make that decision as a consumer. If you only paid a couple of euro for something and it breaks after a couple of weeks, you only paid a few euro for it, so the quality was in relation to the price. It must be suit the purpose of the product. So if it's a kettle, for example, your kettle should boil water, your washing machine should wash clothes, your TV should give you entertainment. So if those things don't work, then it doesn't suit the purpose, and it is in breach of the Sale of Goods and Supply of Services Act. It must be as described as well. So the good you look at must look the way on the outside of the box or on the label or in the shop. It must look like that when you actually get the product. Now, this can be a big problem when online shopping, when sometimes the images aren't the exact same as what you actually get. And we've all had those experiences. We've all probably seen examples of that online. So what you order or what you saw or thought you were ordering is not always what arrives to your house with online shopping. It also must conform or match the sample, and this kind of goes a little bit more with, I suppose, buying furniture or buying like household items like tiles or flooring or paint, because what you see in the shop must be what you actually get when you get home. Now, the only thing about that is obviously different lightings in shop can make things appear slightly differently, but the sample you pay for is the sample you should actually get when you go home. The following notices are illegal for shops to display in relation to faulty goods only. If you change your mind about a product, it is not illegal for them to refuse you a cash refund. It is not illegal for them to only give you a credit note. It is not illegal for them to say, no, you cannot exchange this item without a receipt. And it's not illegal for them to say about anything to do with sales. If the item is faulty, as in there's something wrong with it when you bought it or after you used it or had it for a little while, something happened to it, yes, you are entitled to a cash refund. Yes, you are entitled to not get a credit note. Like you can say, I don't want a credit note, I want my money back, I want this product to be repaired, I want this product to be replaced, but only if the good is faulty. And this is where a lot of people have issues, is they think you go home, you've tried on a pair of jeans, you don't like them anymore, and you go back to the shop and you say, oh, can I return these? You have changed your mind. There's nothing wrong with the goods, only that you don't like them. There's no actual fault with it. So that's really important to remember when you're talking about this. So these signs are only illegal if the goods are faulty. So what does redress actually mean? So redress means to set right or make amends, so to fix something that's wrong with something. So under the Sale and Supply and Services, Goods and Services Act 1980, compensation may be given if the goods are faulty. So remember that fault has to actually exist. If the fault does not exist, then you are not entitled to some form of redress. So what you actually get then depends on the following. So how serious the fault is. So if it's really, really broken and really, really faulty, they might just be easier for them just to replace it with a new one. When the fault actually occurs as well, so remember, like if it's within the time of the guarantee, then yes, you are entitled to some form of redress. But if it's like 10 years later, you probably aren't. And then how soon the consumer complains. Remember I said you have to complain as soon as the fault occurs. You don't leave it 3 or 4 days, 3 or 4 weeks, months, years, whatever it is. You will complain as soon as it happens, and that makes you more likely then to get the form of redress that you actually want. Here I have given you the 3 examples of redress, the 3 R's, and this could be asked definitely in a short question, so it's a refund, a repair, or a replacement. And it's important to be aware of these when we talk about letters of complaint letter, because you will ask for some form of redress in your letter of complaint. So you might say to the person, I would like a refund of my money, I would like this item to be repaired, or I would like a complete new replacement of the item. So those 3 R's when they say redress is very important to remember. I've included some information here on services because people talk only about goods, but services are also a really important thing to know that you have consumer rights protecting you with. So the Sale of Goods Supply of Services Act, as you can see, the word services is included in this act for a reason. It requires the following. So if somebody is giving you a service, they must have the necessary skills. So if you're going to a doctor, you expect that they went to school or to college or to university to study medicine. If you're going to a beautician, you assume that he or she has done the expected qualifications in whatever procedure you're getting done. How would you know? You'd ask for their certificates. So a lot of places will, I suppose, display the certificates on the walls, but if they don't, like there's no harm in asking. Most people don't ask, but you can ask. It's well within your consumer rights to ask that. The materials used must be of merchantable quality. So if somebody's building your house, for example, you're assuming they're using the best quality building materials for the money that you've given them to buy the materials. So they can't use something that's cheap or broken or anything like that. And the service must be carried out with due care and attention. So they must make sure that they are giving you the best quality service for the money that you are paying as well. Now, services are a little bit more difficult when it comes to redress because you're not always able to replace something. If it's something to do with you can't replace it. So the following forms of redress are usually a bit more common. So you get a full refund. So if you're not happy with the service that was provided to you, you get all your money back. If you already used the service for some time and then it became an issue for you, you might get some of your money back, which is partial compensation. Or you might get some other remedy, like they might redo the job for free, or they might offer an additional service for free, or give you a voucher to use in the future. So it all depends on the service that you actually have been using. A guarantee then is something that does come up a lot, and it's a phrase or a word you'll probably use in your letter of complaint, depending on what the letter of complaint is complaining about, obviously. But a contract or a guarantee is a contract between the manufacturer, which is the person who actually made the product in a factory, in industry, wherever they made it, and you, the person that bought it, for a length of time. So your guarantee might be for 6 months, a year, 3 months, 2 or 3 years. It could be any length of time. And your guarantee is covered by the Sale of Goods and Supplies Services Act 1980. So it's an added bonus that does not affect your consumer rights, but it is usually limited by a certain amount of time. The only good thing about a guarantee that is that when you buy the product, sometimes you're given the opportunity to extend your guarantee for extra money. Some people don't take that or don't take that opportunity, but you can do that if you wish. And usually longer guarantees are associated with products that have better quality. In this slide, we're going to look at consumer complaints, how you complain, and whether your complaint is actually valid or not. Okay, so when you make a consumer complaint, it's important you know why you're complaining. So if the good or service is faulty or not what you expected, you have the right to complain. So remember, the word faulty has to be there though. You have to have something wrong with the product, or it isn't what you expected. So maybe it looked one way in the packaging or it looked one way in the shop, and you bring it home and it doesn't look like that anymore. So reasons to complain then. So the goods were never able to do what they should from the beginning. So you bring home your brand new kettle, you plug it in, you fill it full of hot water and it won't boil. Or you bring home your pair of jeans and as soon as you put them on, the button rips, or some part of them rip, and you're like, well, that's not the way that they are not providing their function from the beginning. They're not as described, so what it looks like in the shop is very different to what you bring home, or you were misled in some way as well, so you feel like you were not given fair and honest treatment when you were in the shop. Now, if your complaint fits into that category, you are entitled to repair, replacement, or refund, or a credit note. So the shop is within their rights sometimes as well, so instead of offering you cash, they can offer you a credit note or a voucher to spend in their shop. Now, there is a number of ways, though, as a consumer that you can actually damage your consumer rights or make them not valid. So if the good is changed in any way, so the example that I like to give here, so if you buy a brand new phone and you drop it and you smash the screen and you don't bring it back to the place you bought it to get it replaced, so just say you bought an iPhone, if you don't bring it back to Apple to get it replaced and you bring it to another shop in town that replaces phone screens for half the price, once they've opened up the phone, your guarantee is gone. So if anything else goes wrong with the phone, you bring it back to Apple, they'll say, well, you broke your guarantee by using it somewhere else or getting it fixed somewhere else. So if you've changed the good in any way, that automatically makes your complaint invalid, doesn't count. Also, if you wait too long before finding the fault and returning the item, so just say you bought a new kettle and it's working great, and then all of a sudden it stops boiling water, the next day it boils it, the next day it doesn't, and it's kind of on and off. But if that goes on for too long, like a couple of weeks or a couple of months, you didn't go to the manufacturer and let them know about that fault as soon as it happened. So you've been managing to use that kettle for a number of time now without any complaints, and then all of a sudden you have a complaint. So as soon as the fault happens, you should complain. You shouldn't leave a long distance of time between that. So at that stage, the manufacturer may offer you maybe a partial refund or maybe a credit note. But you're not really entitled to a full refund there because there's been an issue with your complaint. So here we have some reasons why your complaint might be rejected. So it's not justified. If you go to the manufacturer and say, this happened to me, they will say, well, that's nothing to do with us. So if the goods were misused or abused, this is why it's very, very important, and I know not a lot of people do it, to read the instructions. So it's really, really important you read how to use that product, how to look after it, how to care for it. If you care for it or use it the wrong way, and that they can tell you that when they go to repair the product, then automatically your complaint is unjustified. You have abused the product, you have broken it through your own actions. Another thing is if the fault was shown before purchase. So sometimes you might buy an item of clothing, might be missing a button, or might have like a makeup stain on it. And if at the till they say to you, "Oh, you are aware that this is a problem with this product," and you say, "Oh, that's fine, that's fine." Usually they will make a note of writing it on the receipt as well, just to cover themselves. But if you're aware of it, you can come back later and complain about it. And also the change of mind. Now, a lot of shops are very good about change of mind. So you buy stuff, you go home, you don't like it, or you try it on and it doesn't fit or whatever, and you can bring it back with no problem. But technically, you're not really entitled to redress, but most shops will give you redress just as, I suppose, a courtesy and to keep your business and to show really good customer service. Now we're going to look at the number of organizations that are there for the consumer to protect their rights. So the first ones we're going to look at are the government or statutory institutions or organizations. So these are the ones that are paid for, funded by the government, and they are used by the consumer on a daily basis. So the first one is what's called the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, the CCPC. They have ads on the TV, on the radio. You'll really hear about them a lot, especially now that you've maybe listened to it here, you might be a bit more aware of it. So what do? Is they enforce consumer laws and public about their information. And they also inform the public about their consumer rights. I've included a link here to their website. Their website is excellent. It gives you loads of different information on anything to do with being a consumer. So from buying goods and services to getting loans, credit cards, loads of different stuff. So it's a really, really good website that provides information, especially living in Ireland. We want Irish information. The next one we also have is what's called the Office of the Ombudsman. Now he is a man, he exists, that's a picture of him there, and he basically investigates issues that people have or consumers have with government bodies, okay? So if you have a problem with the Department of Education, he will deal with that for you. Or if you have a problem with the county council, or if you have a problem with the hospital, or if you have a problem with An Post, they are all government bodies, so he deals with any complaints that you might have with them. Now you have to make the complaint yourself first, and if they don't respond to you for whatever way, then you contact the ombudsman. So he's very busy and he has an office, like it's not just him on his own doing all the complaints. But he kind of will help you. If you've tried yourself and you haven't got any luck, he will then give you additional help. And this slide then I've included the voluntary organisations. So these are not necessarily paid for by the government. Sometimes they can have certain funding from the government, but they can, it depends on the one. So the first one there, we have the Consumer Association of Ireland. So the biggest thing they do is they publish a magazine called Consumer Choice Magazine. You can buy it. You can get a subscription service of it. You can't just buy it like in your local Eason's or book centre or anything like that. You have to like go online and get it and order, and they'll post it out to your house. Or alternatively, you can get copies of it in your local library. So they give you kind of like reviews and ideas of what to buy for different consumers, consumer aspects and things like that. And then they also lobby the government. So lobby basically means they go to the government, they say, okay, we have a problem with this, we want you to fix it, and the government will say, okay, we'll work with you, or tell us more about what people are saying about that. So they kind of work with the government for consumer laws and things like that. And the last voluntary one then is the Advertising Standards Authority of Ireland, so the ASAI. And they basically make sure that all advertising in Ireland is legal, honest and decent. So nothing that's advertised in Ireland is going to mislead the consumer, or is it going to make them think one thing but it actually means another. And we would have talked about them last year when we did advertising. So when we looked at all the different ads, and we looked at ads that were illegal and stuff like that for different reasons, so they would be the ones that would take down any illegal ads. Okay, so the last part of this chapter, and probably the most important part, because this is what you will be asked to do majority of the time if it comes up in the Junior Cert, is writing a letter of complaint. Now, when writing a letter of complaint, the same rules apply when you write any letters. So letters you write in English or in Irish or in languages like French or German. So it's really important you get the layout right for this, as well as the information you're going to put into it. So why do you write a letter of complaint, or like how do you go about it? So the first thing you do is you make your first complaint in person. So you go into the shop, you say, I have this much of a problem. Now remember, most of your complaints are not with the shop. Sometimes this means they're with the actual maker of the product or the manufacturer. But the shop will kind of be a go-between between you and the manufacturer, because sometimes it can be very hard to contact them, or especially if something was made in China, you're not going to go all the way to China to get them to, acknowledge your complaint. So if you haven't done that, then you're going to have to put it into writing. Now it's recommended that you put it into like a physical letter. Emails don't tend to work, they tend to get lost, people don't tend to always receive them, whereas if you send something by post, there's written evidence of it, so it's a lot easier and they're a lot harder for them to deny that they ever got your complaint. So when you write your letter of complaint, you'll start off with your normal formats I said at the top. So you'll have your address, the address of the person that you're writing to. You'll write dear sir or madam, or maybe you might know the name of the person you are complaining to. Now it's really important when you do this for the junior cert. You are given very little detail. You have to make most of it up on your own. Okay, so if you don't know the name of the person, make it up. Like make up a generic name. If you don't want to give them your address, make up an address for both your address and the address of the person you're writing to. So a bit of creativity is needed here, and a lot of the stuff they will not give to you, so you have to make it up yourself. So once you've done your usual, so your address, the date, then you come over, you write their address, dear sir, madam. Here are the following 4 things that have to be included in the body of the letter, so the main part of the letter. I usually like to make these each a paragraph, so that way I know when for the examiner I can go, okay, they can tick off 1, 2, 3, 4, I've gotten all 4 things that need to be in my letter of complaint. So the first paragraph or first sentence should give details about the product, including the price and date of purchase. So I bought this product in this shop on this date and it cost me this much money. Second thing then is say what's wrong with the product. So when I bought this product, after so many days, so many weeks, whatever, this happened to it. This is what's wrong with it. It does not do this. It does that, whatever it is. Then remind the shop of its legal obligation. So under the Sale and Supply of Services Act 1980, I am entitled to a repair, a replacement or a refund, whatever one that you want, because my good is faulty, because the good does not have merchantable quality, because it's not as described. So go back and think about what you're going to say. And then if you're doing a contract, like so if you're talking about maybe a phone bill or electricity bill, something like that, tell the shop that you have one. So say, okay, I have a contract with you, but I want to end it. And then also you need to really mention in your 4th paragraph what you want them to do about it. So I would like you to repair this good. I would like you to replace it and give me a new one. And then set a time limit. So I would like this to be done by whatever date. So pick the date, and that's really important then as well, so that they are aware of like what time frame that you're looking at. Other important things when you're doing a letter of complaint then is to say that you've enclosed a copy of the receipt. Never ever say you sent off the receipt, or never actually send off the original copy of the receipt, because then you've lost it. You've lost your proof of purchase. So definitely photocopy it, or say I've included a photocopy of the receipt, but I have kept the original. Make sure you address the person correctly, like make it formal, dear sir, madam, and at the end then kind regards, your name, your signature. And also keep copies of the letter you are sending. So photocopy the letter, and if you're really feeling like you are worried about them ignoring your complaint, you can send it by registered post. So that means that you send off the letter and then you pay an extra euro too, and then when they get the letter they have to sign to say they had it. So it makes it all a little bit more kind of above the board and a bit more legal. So if you want to do that, you can say, I'm going to send this letter by registered post so I know you have received it. So on this slide, I've included the layout of your letter. So I'll start in the top right hand corner and work my way across. So you've included your address and the date. And then on the left hand side, then you've included their address and who the letter is addressed to. So dear whoever, dear Mr. Smith, dear Mrs. Power, whatever it is. Make this up, okay? This is not going to be provided to you when in the exam, so it's up to you to make this up. So just get creative. Then you have your 4 main paragraphs. So description of goods, everything, purchase, model, brand. Again, if you don't know, make it up. State the action you would like taken. I would like you to do this, that, the other about my product. I want a repair, replacement, or refund. What action you've taken so far. So I have already complained in the shop. I've already spoken to the manager. I've already rang the phone and no one's answered me. So you can include that also. And also refer to the Consumer Information Act or the Sale of Goods and Supply Services Act, which again gives your answer that A or B standard. Close your letter properly, then yours faithfully or regards, and then your signature. So this is the layout you would have to have in the exam to get full marks. So this is an activity that you can do then to practice writing your letter of complaint. So you bought a pair of black jeans in the winter sale at River Island, and after one wash, the jeans have faded to navy and shrank. So first few things we need to talk about here. So one, you bought the jeans in a sale. Just because you bought it in the sale does not mean anything. That's okay. Like you are still entitled to some form of redress because the jeans are faulty. You didn't bring them home and not like them. You brought them home and they changed color. So you are completely within your rights here. Okay. Now, you return to the shop and you receive no help from the sales assistant. So I definitely include that somewhere in my letter. So what actions have you taken so far? So I returned to the shop, I made them aware of my complaint, and they said they couldn't do anything about it. Okay, so I've given you some information to structure your letter of complaint. Use your address and the date you're going to do this, and then there's River Island's address, beginning with Sir or Madam and yours faithfully. So get that letter of complaint done and see how you get on, and then you can submit that to me then on Google Classroom.